married or in a committed relationship, looking for real advice on having love and enriching your relationship? You are in the right place. Welcome to The Couples Expert with Stuart Fensterheim.
Hello there, and welcome to the Couples Expert podcast. This is Stuart Fensterheim, the Couples Expert. I'm excited to come to you today in this month of love. June is a month that so many people choose to get married, to do the things to let their partners know how much they care about them. And for a lot of us, it's the time for vacations, and we spend typically a whole lot more time with one another than we ever have. And I am a very strong believer that we need to make sure that we also take couples vacations. And doing that is really a way of working on your relationship and making sure that the two of you really feel that emotional connection. So what I decided to do today is in this episode to really talk about one of the things that I see couples doing at times that are so very destructive to having a relationship where both of you feel important to one another. Because for most of us, our intimate life is really a significant part of our relationship. What I mean by that is that when you're in a significant adult relationship with a partner, your sex life, for many of us, one of the more pleasurable times is then when we're making love. And that what I don't want the two of you to think about with this is just about sexuality. Although what I'm going to be talking about today is this podcast being about how sometimes in a somewhat destructive manner, not just somewhat, in a very destructive manner, sex becomes a mechanism to punish our partners. Sex begins to be used as a weapon. There are many kinds of weapons in this world. We have knives, we have guns, and the purpose of them is either protection or to hurt someone that you see as an enemy. And when you begin to look at your sex life, your intimate life, in a similar fashion, as a weapon to be used to hurt our partner, to control them, to get them to do something that you need from them, that you find no other way to punish them but using your sex life. You now have redefined the nature of your intimate relationship. And what we want to be careful in having this conversation is that we're not just talking about the act of intercourse. We're talking about touch, affection, closeness. And one of the first signs that this becomes a problem is when I hear couples who come into my office and they begin to talk about their intimate life, and they started off by saying something to the effect of, and we're not sleeping in the same bedroom because we're upset with one another. Now let's pull that apart a minute. If you're not sleeping in the same room, where are you sleeping? You're sleeping in a separate space. You're sending a message to your partner that I'm not even willing to be in the same jurisdiction as you. That is an awful thing to communicate to your partner. And if you're doing that and you're trying to send a message to your partner about how upset you are with them, and you're doing it removing yourself from their physical space, that is the biggest slap in the face that you can give to someone who you've said, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part, we're in this together. It's not allowing yourself to even put out the effort to work through whatever issues may be having you so upset, and feel like the only way to accomplish this is to send a message that there is a shut door between the two of you. And when you shut that door and cut off all dialogue and cut off all the ability to put the issue aside for that evening and just sleep side by side next to your partner, you're sending a message about the value you place in both the two of you and in them as an individual. That has long-term effects. That has the impact that goes beyond this immediate time that the two of you are upset with each other. And quite frankly, what it begins to do and what continues to happen even when you're no longer upset with each other, you have now created a fragility of your relationship that doesn't allow the two of you to feel like you can trust one another. And when that foundation of trust is broken, it is a tremendously difficult thing to build that back. So when we say to our partners, I don't respect you enough even to put myself out, that I'm going to go elsewhere. I may not be moving out in a separation, as a marital separation, but I'm moving out of our private space, our bedroom, which is a place of connection, of love, of togetherness, of affection, of the two of us in this world together. And I'm sending you the message that I don't care that much to work things out with you so that we can be there. And sometimes you are just really, really mad. And some couples will turn to me and say, well, I'm so angry I could spit, so I'm going into another bedroom to calm down. If you need to be in another space to have a timeout, that's acceptable. But that timeout can't be for the entire evening. That timeout has to be to get you calm enough, and then you need to come back into the bedroom and lie in the bed next to your partner and let them know that your commitment to the two of you will prevent you from ever separating in that kind of way. If you ever have an experience, and I'm really strong in this area, if the two of you ever have an experience where either one of you must be away on the couch, can't stay in that same room, you have a major problem in your relationship. And I highly recommend, even once that happens, you seek out some professional help, because I've never only seen it happen once. And when that kind of distance, that emotional distance is necessary, then what ends up happening is that you don't have a relationship where both of you have a strong enough commitment. And that commitment needs to be worked on. That commitment needs to be talked about. And that's just one dimension of this problem, because it is that emotional disconnect that leads to another layer of this, which is when sex is used as a weapon. We're not going to that extent where we say, I can't be with you in this same room, but what I'm going to do is remove one of the things that most couples, and I don't have this from a statistic, so the number I'm about to throw out is not a statistically proven, research validated, but I would suggest over 80% of people would define that their sexual physical relationship is an essential ingredient to describing your relationship as satisfying. And that if your love life is not in place, most people would say that their relationship is not a good one. It's not satisfying. It doesn't bring them joy. And for those of us that struggle, as through the years we have changes in different degrees, where our sexual desire or our need for a sexual experience with our partner is not as great as it may have been at one point, that alone is not a problem as long as the two of you are working on that together, having a better understanding and being willing to put the energy into improving your physical relationship, but just accepting that our sexual relationship is not satisfying to both of you can never be acceptable. This relationship, the commitment that both of you have to make, is that your sexual relationship is one in which both of you will work on, because an acceptance that without that, your partner isn't going to feel as positive about the relationship, and there can't be anything more horrible to you than your partner's unhappiness. And that if your partner is unhappy, that must be, hopefully, that is a devastating feeling that you have, and you don't have the experience where you get too blankety blank bad, just deal with it. And I see that happening over and over again for couples that I end up recognizing when we talk about it. It becomes, I see that experience of accepting our partner's unhappiness as acceptable is where the problem begins, and that's the precursor for two people that without some work will end up either in an incredibly lonely relationship or divorced. And that's the last thing I want for anyone listening to this podcast to ever have an experience. So what we need to accept is that if you are using sex as a weapon to solve a relationship issue, that is one of the worst things you can do to your marriage and relationship. And if you acknowledge that it's happening and you accept it as just part of the things we do, you're basically saying my relationship, my marriage is garbage. And I'm just going to throw it in the trash every so often. And that's what leads to the marriage ending, when people begin to recognize that their partner has not enough of a commitment to you as an individual, to you as a person who cares about what you feel, that this is a one-sided relationship. And what you both need to have is, this is a team, this is us as a couple, and we will do nothing that will hurt either one of us. When you face that fact that you have a relationship that has the struggle of the two of you not putting the energy into really helping your partner feel important to you in every way that they need to feel loved, each one of us has a different need in that area, that we create these relationships that don't have the two of you feeling significant and important. And that is the key to most things that we talk about here. When the interpretation that you have about your partner is that they care so much about you, they're willing to do whatever it takes to help you not misunderstand your behavior, and that when they see the things you do, even when you mess up, there is that underlying experience that everything about you and who you are as a person, they love completely and entirely, And there isn't anything in their world that they're more passionate about than helping you feel loved, and that they do the same thing for you. Then you have a relationship that's pretty damn solid. And typically, when you have that kind of relationship, we don't have to worry about sex being used as a weapon, because it never would be. Because using sex as a weapon is really one of the more destructive things. There's a clear sense that your partner is invested in control, and a power struggle ensues. And it's all about taking away those resources that make you feel good as a person, that make you feel good as a partner. And who is this person that you're married to that would be willing to do that? That's a primitive need, a biological need, mind you, that all of us have. The need to have touch and tenderness and pleasure by that one person in our world, and there'll be no one else but this one person that you get your physical touch needs from. And that the commitment that we made early in your relationship, for some of us, incredibly early, that it'll never be anyone ever again, just the two of us, to enjoy that kind of physical touch. You're the one, and I'm your one. And there's only going to be one vagina and one penis that I'm going to get to touch for the rest of my life. And if that is taken away from you, that need for closeness, and so many of us, men somewhat more, I believe, than women, is our emotional connection comes from our physical relationships. And that utilizing it as a weapon, utilizing it as something that we will manipulate you with, the only interpretation that people make is, I am not a value to you. But let's look at some of the other dimensions here that are necessary and that comes from using sex as a weapon. What you're sending to your partner when that happens is you're sending a message about your standards of life and your way of treating people. And that when you show someone that your body is a means of manipulation, it sends a bad message about, quite frankly, not only what you're doing to treat your partner poorly, but how you view yourself. And that I don't see how someone using that part of the relationship is at all possible with maintaining your own self-respect. And that there's nothing stronger or more important about a relationship as two people who feel good about themselves, who feel good about their actions. And so many of us, and I see couples telling me this all the time, when they come into my office and they're caught up in this cycle of conflict, they say to themselves, I don't even recognize who I am. I said some things that are god-awful. And I know that I have to heal and that we as a couple have to mend from what I said. And when the next day, and I reflect back, but let's add now that you've now used your body as a means to manipulate. What's that reflection in the mirror going to say to you then? When is the last time you took a relationship checkup? Sure, we get our vehicles serviced, have maintenance done on our homes, and see our local doctor to make sure our bodies are in good working order. But sadly, we tend to neglect one of the most important things in our lives, the health of our relationship. You get mammograms, you get a prostate check, but do you check your relationship? Most of us don't. The relationship checkup and assessment will provide you with a comprehensive information about the level of satisfaction you have with your partner, how deep the emotional connection is, how strong your trust and commitment is, and whether or not you deal with conflict well. The best part is you don't have to do it alone. The couples expert will provide you with a 30-minute consultation to help you feel really strong and empowered to do all that you can because you take the ownership of your relationship by the two of you working together and taking the annual survey. For merely the cost of dinner and a movie, you can set yourself on the road to a fulfilling and fabulous relationship that will last a lifetime. Go to www.thecouplesexperts.com and sign up today to register for your relationship checkup. Now back to the episode. The other piece that's so very clear when we use our sexuality as a means to really get our way is that you're not really ever confronting the real issue. The issue of the relationship that's troubled, and what is it that's really going on that's not allowing the two of you to have a relationship in which both of you feel that resolving issues is a priority, going back to my comment a few minutes ago, because we want both people, both part of the team, both doubles. If you think about tennis, if you're playing doubles and one of you is throwing a stroke that's not working for you as a couple, you would talk about that. You'd fix it. You would solve it. You'd rehearse it. You'd practice it. You'd do everything necessary, both individually and as a couple, to make the two of you click in that way. But if we then said, well, I'm going to rip off your strings, how do you then solve the issue that may lead to a missed point? You don't ever solve the issue because you never confronted the issue. We need to find means and understand that if the two of you struggle to resolving problems, unless the sex is thrown in as a way of strong-arming your partner to do the things you need from them, you have to figure out why are you not able to resolve those issues. And that takes a lot of soul-searching, education, and ability to see your relationship, which is why I go back to say, for most of you, if sex has been used as a weapon, you need professional help. You need a couples counselor who specializes on attachment and emotional connection to help the two of you really get to the root of the problem, which is what's getting in the way of being able to solve this issue as a couple, as two people caring about one another. So what we're really saying is using sex as a weapon doesn't solve anything. It won't resolve any of the issues. It keeps it really right out there so that what ends up happening is the two of you never really get at what's stopping the connection. Why are there walls coming up? Why are you in a relationship with your partner that just doesn't seem to be easy? And more than anything, what it ends up doing is leading to additional conflict. It leads into an inability when everything is said and done, and the issue is now, for most of us, if sex has been used as a weapon, the issues are swept under the rug, never addressed, never figured out why we couldn't resolve it, and it leads to more fights. You're caught up in this never-ending cycle of conflict, manipulation, power struggle, and not being able to sit down and say, what got in the way of the two of you being able to just accomplish what you were trying to accomplish in a way that's healthy and positive for the relationship and not so destructive. is that when you do end up having sex, it's not lovemaking. The sex becomes a very physical, isolated experience, and not two people communicating, looking each other in the eyes, and you see the love there as you have this incredibly wonderful experience of letting go and having a wonderful orgasm with that special person in your life, because that doesn't feel like you're making love to someone who cares about you. And the sex feels awkward. The sex feels rigid. The sex feels not spontaneous. And the sex feels mechanical. And most of us would say that kind of sexual experience is not a satisfying one. And for those of us as we age, where we need more the emotional connection to have a physical response, if you're a female manipulating, using sex to a male partner who is someone that struggles somewhat with erection difficulties, and now you're wondering, why isn't the erection working? We need to get more Viagra. We need to do something different. Why isn't the medicine working? Well, psychologically, you're not even present. So we have to have long-term idea here of what is necessary for both of you to feel good about this wonderful place, our bed, where we make love, as a wonderful experience of two people sharing their love for one another and not just a physical act. That doesn't happen if your view of your partner is not someone who cares a great deal about you. Because what we want, and I don't want to labor this, because I think so far as we've been talking here, it's pretty clear that this is an incredibly negative experience for a couple. That you need to look at what is getting in the way of having the ability to talk about things that are important. And so often, it's because we are caught up in a cycle of pursue and withdraw, and that we view our partners as someone that doesn't care about us. And I don't want to leave today's podcast, because I think that as I'm reflecting on some of the things that I've just shared, it feels like I've been really hard on the person that is using sex as a weapon. The reality here is there's nothing sadder than this. There's nothing sadder than being in a relationship where you view your partner as the only way to get them to care about your needs by manipulating using your body. And that if your definition is that's the only way to get my partner to respond in the way that I need, and for me to really view my partner as caring about me, that I have to manipulate in this kind of way, that's a really lonely place to be. And I want the two of you to make a commitment to one another, that if you reflect back after listening to this podcast and say that we have had times in our relationship where our sex life, our touch life, our life of physical closeness and cuddling are those experiences in which either one of us felt like we have to strong-arm the other to do the things that we need to feel loved, that we will get some help. Be vulnerable with your partner. Take a risk. Talk about this at a time when things are not difficult between the two of you, and let your partner know that you want a relationship with them where both of you feel satisfied, both of you feel loved, both of you understand that this has been a destructive pattern in the relationship, and that you will work together on never having this happen again. Take care, have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening. This episode has ended, but your journey continues. Head over to www.thecouplesexperts.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in this episode, as well as bonus content exclusive to podcast listeners. Enjoyed this episode? Why not hit subscribe now and never miss an episode?